I'm Dr. Julie Johnson. I am the Director of Continuing and Professional Studies here at Rutgers University. I want to welcome you all to a wonderful conversation that we are going to have with some great industry leaders. I want to introduce to you David Lipsey, who is the Academic Director for Creative Operations and Digital Asset Management Programs here at CPS. David?
Julie, thanks so much. And Neal, David, and Meredith, welcome. We're so glad to be joined by you and your willingness to share your insights, leaderships, an occasional quandary or puzzle that needed to be solved along the journey of how we put content to work and getting the liquidity and meaning that content has for us in today's world, the careful management and shepherding of digital assets that both of you are such leaders in, and Neal has contributed to for so many years, starting at Chorus Entertainment and then in his successive work. We have some great presentations. Neal is going to be the host with the most today, and we'll keep an eye on the Q&A panel as we like to do. This colloquium is being brought to you by our professional studies program at Rutgers University. We're thrilled to be continuing to provide professional education in so many different aspects of digital asset management, including managing video assets. And we look forward to whenever we have the opportunity to have you join us to upskill and enable all of your growth and our growth as professionals. At the end of our colloquium here today, we will spin the wheel, as we like to do, and we have a lovely, very nice credit towards Rutgers Professional Education, and Julie will draw the lucky winner on this. And so, Neal, always a treat to be spending time with you, and thank you for your help in putting this together. I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the Rutgers program for hosting such an amazing event. And while we're on the thank you train, why don't we thank Meredith and David ahead of time for joining us today on this session. Always an interesting one when we talk about video, especially when it comes to DAM, right? Meredith has been on some of my panels. I know David is going to probably be on my panel in New York. That's the way I make him be on my panel in New York at these conferences that we have around North America and Europe, because it's always a weird state of where does video fit in DAM. Right, we know this all the time. All the vendors say, well, we can manage video, but then it turns out it's really just the finished asset. And where does it really go? In our practice at Chromata Solutions, we actually only specialize in helping organizations with how do they manage their video and what you should be looking for in a DAM or MAM provider. And we'll be talking about a little bit about that today. As David suggested, we love questions. And if you don't mind, we also don't mind this being a bit of a therapy session, if you will, as we like to do. So ask away those questions. We'll be watching for them. And then at the end of two amazing presentations, we'll get a chance to start dealing with all of those questions. I think first up today, we have the incredible Meredith. Meredith, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your amazing role and some of the things that you're doing. And then when Meredith's done with her presentation, we're going to hear from our good friend David as well, and some of the incredible things that David is doing in video. Meredith?
Thank you, Neal. Thanks for those kind words. It's such a pleasure to be here and meet everybody. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my presentation, and then I'll introduce myself and what I'm doing and the content that I manage. Give me a second to share the screen. All right.
And we can see that, Meredith.
Excellent. So I'm the Senior Manager of IT Services at the Los Angeles Philharmonic, coming to you today from Los Angeles, California. I oversee our IT, not on the operations side, but on the business side, working with our end users, working with our internal partners, working with all of the artists and amazing performers that we program on all of our stages with the Los Angeles Philharmonic and the venues that we manage. And I started as a digital asset manager at Los Angeles Philharmonic back in 2018. The Philharmonic was founded in 1918. I came aboard in 2018 to help with our centennial celebrations. The archives was formed in the 90s, and just like many archives, had media of every different type of format imaginable, had started to digitize, but had a lot more work to do. And we knew that with our centennial activities, we would need a digital asset management solution to handle all that content. And then it was also an opportunity to look enterprise-wide at the association. What was going on? What other types of assets were we capturing? And we had a lot of media. We had started doing archival recordings of both audio and video here at the Walt Disney Concert Hall and our other venues. That started around 2010. And so just, hundreds of terabytes worth of digitized content and born digital content with no home. So we wanted to launch a DAMS, digital asset management solution, which we did in 2017. We also worked on an intranet solution where we could have internal communication, best practices, and a shared calendar solution. Everything we do is event focused around building our seasons, and we're a very mission driven organization to get people to enjoy live music, live classical music, and all other types of genre within our venues of live performance. We also worked on a media asset management, a MAM solution. We ended up implementing that in 2023. And that continues to be a lot of my work around media asset management, working with rich media content, especially our video content. I'm going to take you through our content strategy and really how DAMS is the backbone of that strategy today and how we keep growing. So we're at the Walt Disney Concert Hall downtown. We're also at the Hollywood Bowl during the summer. We help manage this space, as well as the LA Phil performs here as their summer home. You can see the video capture that's done on these large IMAX screens. It's a wonderful outdoor amphitheater. And if you've never been to Hollywood Bowl, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best venues in the country. We also manage the Ford Theater. That's another our outdoor amphitheater, smaller than the Hollywood Bowl, which provides an intimate space. We do community programming there. We support new and upcoming artists, as well as program with the LA Phil there as well. We also support YOLA, the Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles. That is our major philanthropic effort at the Los Angeles Philharmonic, where we encourage music education across LA County. We work with educators and various schools across the county. And then we also host the YOLA National Conference every summer, which gathers high school students from around the globe to come to LA, work with LA film musicians, work with mentors. It's a fantastic program that just keeps growing and growing. We've seen a lot of growth in our YOLA National program over the years. Our LA Film Media team was formed not as a separate department, but actually as a cross-departmental effort where we have our digital folks, our website folks, our artistic programmers, and then people like me on the IT and technology side, and our archivists working together to provide the best media experiences possible. And we understand that our media strategy falls under three pillars: how we capture our live performances, how we promote our performances and our venues and our brand, and then where are the opportunities to provide narrative. Storytelling is part, of the artistic makeup of what we do. And so being able to produce either long form content or short form content with strong narrative threads has become, central to our media strategy. So performance capture really tries to capture what the live experience is like. We've been archiving these performance captures since the mid 2000s to various, success. But we really want to focus on what it looked like, what it felt like during that live performance. And so our digital asset management system houses these final productions, captures of the final productions, as well as supporting documentation, production summaries. That can be, detailed concept art for larger productions, costumes and props if we're doing operas. or what happens after the show, right? How do we continue to promote and reuse this content? And this is a photo from our opening night celebration in 2023, where the concert hall had turned 20. And you can see our lovely violinist up in the organ loft there. Most of our video content is produced for online. We have most of our audiences coming to our website, following us on social media, watching things on YouTube. That's where the majority of our video content is living. And again, we're following these various pillars of not just capturing the performance, but understanding how to promote the upcoming concerts, how to promote the next season, and how to provide narrative. So we have behind the scene videos, we have special interviews, lots of different types of content that gets captured year round. We also produce our own series. It's an episodic view of what it's like to put these performances on called Soundstage. Soundstage was launched in 2021 during the pandemic when we couldn't present on our stages. And so we brought our content to the world. We provide these performances for free. People can watch them through our website and watch them on YouTube. And it was a huge success to be able to provide this content for free. We had millions of new eyeballs watching our performances, experiencing our programming from around the world. We found out that we have a huge following in Latin America, much larger than we thought. And this type of feedback was so valuable in understanding what else we could be programming on our stages. And the series still continues today in various formats, as well as smaller kind of magazine style bites of content. We also collaborate with documentary filmmakers. We have a wonderful relationship with Breakwater Studios, where we've been a co-producer of short documentaries. And we won an Academy Award last year for The Last Repair Shop, which is the story of the LA Unified School District's last repair shop for musicians, the people who actually repair instruments to provide to children across the city. We also helped produce a concerto as a conversation that's composer Chris Bowers with his father. And it's this really a unique story about the Los Angeles experience, becoming a composer, what that looks like in today's world. And Chris Bowers is a longtime collaborator with the LA Phil as well. So we really like to leverage our artistic partnerships into new opportunities, again, reaching new audiences and expanding the role of music. We also have large media partnerships. We have a longtime partnership with Disney, and we've been producing with them concerts at the Hollywood Bowl. Big experiences from The Lion King to Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever concert that then is can be watched on the Disney Plus services. And again, really pushing the boundaries of what it's like to capture live performances, supplemented with animations, with fireworks, with all sorts of amazing graphics. And then in the case of Happier Than Ever, directly collaborating with our music director, Gustavo Dudamel, and then the orchestra playing Billie Eilish's music with her. Just a fantastic production. And also, Lion King is a lease event, and so that's a way for us to rent out the Hollywood Bowl to major partners and then still be able to promote the Hollywood Bowl experience. We get a lot of people coming back every summer because they've seen stuff on Disney Plus. And then this year, we did this little concert in the desert called Coachella. We were the first orchestra to program an entire set for the Coachella Music Festival. We played both weekends with amazing guest stars. And in this case, we were capturing video, we were capturing the performance, we were doing behind the scenes footage, we were doing a ton of social media content. And then we were also created unique video for the monitors. So videos playing a part in the entire narrative of our concert strategy, especially for large scale events like Coachella. So this year truly felt like a milestone year for us. I mean, every year feels like a milestone year. I love the content that we're producing. But for this presentation, it really gave me an opportunity to look back at the last 5 years and then think about where we're going in the next 5 years. 2025 felt so monumental because we were also coming out of the natural disasters of the LA fires. And I really saw our content strategy shift and our promotional strategy shift to not just promoting our concerts, but putting together a benefit concert where we opened up the Hollywood Bowl in April, which we never do. We got it ready in record time. And we provided a free concert for the community. We invited first responders, their families, also members of the Hollywood community, to thank them for saving our Hollywood Bowl during the wildfires, and also just to provide a big hug to the community of Los Angeles, acknowledge what we'd all been going through, and reach out to community members in need. We also worked with our board and their generous donations to provide a wildfire relief fund. We had a handful of staff members and orchestra members who lost their homes during the fire, and we were able to raise money to benefit them directly as well as others who needed it. Christina Aguilera headlined, Gustavo Dudamel conducted. It was a really, really special night and just such an example of how all of our teams come together, collaborate so seamlessly, and really, I feel like sometimes pull off the impossible. I'm going to show a video that we created for social media. We launched it on all of our social media channels the night of the concert. We also showed a video inside the concert to thank the wildfire first responders and victims. But this video is really exemplary, I think, of where we're going and how we have changed and using live performance captures and all different other types of video content to tell new narratives and really expand the mission of the LA Phil, that we want to provide art and music for healing, a place where people can gather, but it really reaches, our broad audiences, and we want to continue to expand and represent our communities as best as we can. So what you're going to see is a video that was captured and helped out with an agency that we worked with, as well as our internal marketing teams. And a lot of the content you'll see was provided by LA Phil staff themselves.
Here, love is not a drill. It's the first response. From the west side to the east side, cultures braid our pride together. Under a sky that's forever Dodger blue. There's moments where we question what makes us close. It's not just locking bumpers across the 210 and the 405. It's when your neighbor's good morning turns into your neighbor's I need you. We learn that only with our hearts, we can distinguish a blaze from warmth. Only with our hearts, we learn to extinguish the fear, the doubt. Look at just how far our voices can stretch across desert lands. No mountain high enough or valley low could break the harmony of this city. A melody that can't be performed alone. Our heroes on the front line laid down flames, hushed embers, for home's sake, to remind us love is not a drill. It's the first response.
So as you can see, we've compiled archival footage of our recordings, B-roll from our venues, other stock footage, new footage, photographs from our staff, other members of our community. It just really marks a shift in our narrative techniques and how we are, growing those messages, as well as supporting, our campaigns to raise money for our wildfire relief fund, and still remind people that they have a home when it's safe to come back to concerts. We'll be here. So really the backbone of where we store that content, where we want to encourage collaboration and encourage, new creative endeavors is within our digital asset management solution. Since we launched in 2017, we provide a spot where we can provide historical research. You can make appointments with our archives team and search our collections, both in person and online. We can do research within for our internal partners as well. We're getting ready for a new performance. We can, of a major piece, we can look at what that piece looked like in the past. We have a centralized calendar solution. Like I mentioned, we need to look internally. We need to know what's going on every day. We're date driven around here with everything that's going on at all of our venues and all of our partners. We provide a collaborative space where our creative teams can work together. We provide a trusted repository where our digital items can live safely, securely, backed up for disaster recovery, and also follow cybersecurity best practices. We have a brand toolkit where we keep all of our brand assets from logos to approved B-roll, approved photography, in a space where we can provide direct access with secure logins, as well as for internal uses. And then public links. We can link out to audio and video recordings for stream-only purposes. We provide mainly this for our own orchestra members. They can listen to their recordings the very night that they go home after a concert and see how they've done and prepare for the next one. Our horn section is actually a big fan of this. They like to do that a lot. Our digital asset management system is called Clark. We named it for the founder of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, William Andrews Clark Jr. He was an eccentric millionaire in the early 1900s who had a vision to bring arts and culture to LA. And he surely succeeded. So we honor his legacy and continue to add to that legacy with lots of new content coming into our doors through the dams every day. This is what the dams looks like. We have a lot of metadata options with our filters. We have a rich taxonomy structure built around event dates and all the metadata that goes along with that. We try to inherit metadata as much as possible and try to do, as little touching of tagging as we can, because we want to encourage as many people as possible to upload to the dams, share within the dams, keep assets secure, keep them in a central repository, and make sure that everything is searchable. So here's an example where you can see archival recordings, both video and audio, red carpet photography for a gala, and performance photography. We also collect our programs, production summaries, and other types of paperwork involved with the productions, and as well as all the other activities that happen around the company, our philanthropic efforts, our education efforts, our museum and archive efforts. We try to store all that and represent those efforts as faithfully as we can. We also came up with a project management solution that we call Clark PM. Really, it's a production management solution. It's based on our production scheduling, our calendar system. We worked with our dam vendor to build this out where we can see projects go through their statuses from in development to announced. We provide information to our orchestra members, to our crew members, really everything that comes before something is archived, all the planning that goes into those events, being able to note the programs and various information. And this continues to be developed today. It was really a great opportunity to get more people from the production side and the marketing side engaged with our dams. And it continues to be a lot of my work currently. So looking back 5 years ago, in 2020, we were during the height of the pandemic. We could not bring audiences into our venues, and so we had to bring the content to them. We opened up a strategy that we would leverage our existing content and provide access, possibly through a donation model, repackaging archival recordings, re-editing, seeing what was available. We moved quickly into our next phase where we were curating from our existing venues, creating new content as safely as we could, and then distributing them on the most accessible platforms, mainly YouTube, but also our social media content continued to grow. Of course, we knew that this was bound to happen. It just really skyrocketed during the pandemic. When we were at home, people were looking for more content, more willing to donate to get this content, but also we wanted to find new audiences. Again, provide them the programming that they were used to while they couldn't come to our stages. And then we could reimagine our venues, right? That's how the soundstage program really came to be. How can we turn the Hollywood Bowl into a soundstage, a safe spot where we can capture and film our performances outdoors? And then how can we distribute them globally? And it was a wild success. Along that way, I continued to provide the technological backbone, making sure that we had a system that was scalable, that could meet all these needs. And it did come back to, okay, when we're ready to be back in our spaces, how can we improve our archival captures? Our archival captures were currently at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, just this one standalone shot from all the way in the back that just let you know what was going on stage. And that was useful. We could stream on demand for our orchestra members and staff. We could provide various clips on social media. We could provide copies of the archival recordings for our composers, especially our new commissioned work. We could align with our commercial recordings and our radio broadcast schedule, really understand how things are recorded, how things are captured. And then we could set up different camera angles and use it as supplemental footage for more broadcast projects, especially documentary series and a lot of our narrative, strategies behind the scenes. But we knew that we had to upgrade that system. So we spent the next couple years upgrading the cameras. We went with Panasonic point tilt zoom or PTZ cameras that allow you to unobtrusively capture the performances within the concert hall. Again, the focus is on the live events. So we're not setting up camera angles that would distract the performers or distract the audience. That's our video booth. Modest video booth in the concert hall. Frank Gehry was an amazing architect, but his architectural plans didn't really plan for technological expansion. So we do the best that we can. And really we had to implement a media asset management solution because once all these cameras start rolling, we have 9 cameras right now. We're dealing with about 1.5 TB of data every 90-minute concert. So every time those cameras start rolling, that's a lot of data that myself and my team are then responsible for managing, for making accessible, and then eventually archiving and preserving for the long term. So this is a diagram of how we accomplish that. How do we make content accessible? How do we provide post-production services? How do we work remotely in the cloud? That came out of the pandemic being a real necessity to support remote work, support hybrid activities. It's really a huge benefit for us. Our video production team goes on tour. They can be traveling the world. They can be across the country and still collaborating with each other based on new technology in the cloud that really skyrocketed, especially between 2021 and today. So we capture the cameras. They go into a Key Pro Ultra machine. We have those cards as our backup. And because of that backup and safety net, we were able to do a proof of concept, a POC, the first year that we implemented the system. I worked with some great consultants who had worked with broadcast and other media companies who weren't capturing concerts, but they were capturing all sorts of other live events with multi-cameras. And so how do you deal with that many streams of high definition video? How do we solve for that? So we have a on-site rack with multiple computers, 1 computer per each camera stream, where we can transcode on site, create proxy files, and then back those up and deliver them in meaningful and managed ways. Going from one side from our local NAS storage, and then being able to usher that content through our asset lifecycle where we edit and keep a line cut. We share on Clark, a digital asset management system, and then we also preserve a copy in cold storage, which for us is a output on LTO that we work with another vendor to help us with our digital preservation strategy. We're only preserving our AV content currently, but there is potential to expand that preservation strategy to more assets in the future. The new MAM system really relies on cloud technology. So on the other side, you'll see us using LucidLink to make those files available in the cloud. And then there's other opportunities for us to look at other vendors as well, because cloud technology, just the speed at which we can, get video content now keeps going and keeps improving. And then again, we're ushering that through retention strategy, where we're just keeping final projects or final isolated, those are the ISOs, ISOCAM, isolated cameras as needed, and then sharing those final cuts through our DAM system. This is what the DAM system looks like when it starts ingesting those video files. We have unique file naming conventions, again, making content sortable even before it reaches tagging or reaches a curation stage. And then we have a similar setup at the Hollywood Bowl. So our media asset management system at the Hollywood Bowl is a little different because we have those large jumbo screens. That's our IMAG capture system, stands for image magnification. And so we get a line cut for every concert. So unlike the concert hall where we have 9 individual feeds that have to be either cut together that night or cut together later, we're getting that final reproduction of that live event every night at the Hollywood Bowl. It means we're generating over 60 terabytes every summer. And out of that 60 terabytes, we are archiving about 20 terabytes annually. So we're doing curation. We're understanding that we don't have rights for everything. We're really focused on LA Phil IP, things that we would want to use in the future or store, for meaningful capture purposes. Our system at the Hollywood Bowl is completely configurable for our lease events, large touring productions that come through, as well as live streaming opportunities. And it's completely managed by LA Phil staff and video directors. This is what our media file map looks like. So we have, as the videos are created, we're very intentional in how we capture those videos and what we're preserving. Again, we're not saving everything. We are doing curation all the time and trying to work directly with our video producers and understanding what they need from the work in progress solution all the way to eventual preservation. So we start with our on-premise storage. We're capturing ProRes right now with a ProRes LT format. That's fine because, again, like I mentioned, most of our stuff goes on the web. Then we have a cloud-based work in progress solution. We can bring in other ProRes files from other shoots that happen outside of our venues. And then we have our DAM solution where we're trying to auto ingest that same ProRes file as quickly as possible. We'll keep all the files within the DAMs. We'll move it through various, tiers of storage. We definitely rely on cold storage. And then we can also bring in any other file formats as needed. And then we're working with our preservation storage vendor, which is really for that permanent storage solution offline on LTO. And then again, we can bring in any other permanent records we need into that system as well. So looking ahead, where are we going to be by 2030? We're going to continue to develop the LA Film media strategy. We're going to keep building on this momentum right now that we have in the media landscape, offering more and more compelling video content to a broad audience as possible. We're going to continue to develop our media plan that executes our content more efficiently, how we use our resources more efficiently, how much marketing effort is needed, be really intentional with the resources that we have. We're going to continue to evaluate and test. We love that feedback of what media content is engaging and how do we continue to broaden those audiences. It might sound corny, but really, the children are our future. We want to see what the next generation is interested in. We want to continue to nurture those relationships, bring more audiences into the concert hall, expose more young people to classical music and lots of different types of genres of music, really form that appreciation for the arts early on and continue to have them as lifelong audience members. We will most likely implement a media asset management solution at the Ford, as well as our Beckman Yola Center. That's where our youth orchestra's main operations are. And the Ford, again, is that smaller outdoor amphitheater that doesn't have the cameras installed yet, but we'd like to see that. We'd like to provide more video captures, especially for our community partners that don't have the big budgets to come in and do their own, capture strategies. We want to be able to provide those services to them. We want to be able to enhance the user experience of the dam. We want to provide better research tools and more targeted brand experiences. I'm working with our dam vendor on really developing, views that are specific for different departments, understanding how people collaborate, understanding their behavior. We've reached a maturity point in our dam, so it's a great opportunity to know, where we have to, keep pushing and keep improving the system. And with that, I would like to launch automated retention schedules that are unobtrusive to the user, right? They're just part of our day-to-day work, moving more files to Glacier, being really responsible with our resources and how we curate and dispose of those assets. We're not going to keep everything. We want to be responsible for our environment, responsible for our budgets, and all of our systems working together will help us do that. So thank you so much. I encourage you to visit our websites, view our content, and hopefully I'll see you in Los Angeles at a concert. Thank you.
I definitely want to come to see a concert now. There's no doubt about that for it. Meredith, really amazing presentation. Quite a moving video, by the way, for those who were affected by the fires. Really, really important that you guys did that. A couple questions. I'm going to start with some fun ones with it, and then why don't we dive into some of the other ones? One of the things, you have so many assets. What would be a couple of those that are most commonly requested that come up?
Mm. Oh, photographs of our music director, Gustavo Dudamel. He's our top search hit every day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. And then Hollywood
And
Bowl fireworks is our second most requested search topic.
now, what's interesting about that is, are they looking for video or pictures of the fireworks?
Both, both. But
Wow.
a lot of what we hold a lot of photography assets.
Wow. Yeah, I could see exactly that for it. When we think about this transition that occurred, right, as you're starting to get into it, one of the things I was thinking about was you're recording the performances
Mhm.
and you're utilizing them. I'm curious, are you also recording any of the rehearsals? Are those being used at all?
Mm. Good question. We rarely record rehearsals. We respect the union bargaining agreements for our
Oh,
musicians, and they rarely like to have their rehearsals recorded. It's a
oh,
very
that's
sensitive
fascinating.
topic. Yeah, we
Yeah.
will do specific shoots. We do have some great behind the scenes content of guest conductors and our music director, working with the orchestra. So we will get permission sometimes. It's a cool process to see, definitely. I learn a lot from it every time I see a rehearsal, but we rarely release and record those. There's sensitivity involved for sure.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see not releasing them. But I was more curious if you're recording just from both the size and scale, and then are they using them for education purposes in terms of what they're doing?
Yeah,
And
no, the musicians like to use their actual concerts for education purposes. Yeah, so it's very
yeah,
common that we'll have a classical program Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we'll record an audio and sometimes video capture of all those nights. And then our section leaders and soloists will usually go home on Friday night, review their recordings, and then prepare
wow.
for Saturday and Sunday. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a really great use of it, right? Because how did they do, things like that? Even rewatching a webinar like this, how did you do? And how many times did I say or actually? Is one of the things that I learned for
Okay.
reviewing those. I was going to ask you about some cautionary tales and guidance on this, but it sounds like there's one, right? Where depending on what you're doing, you may need to make sure that the appropriate permissions
Yes.
are held. Now, how are you managing all of that? I mean, music, people, right? What happens when it comes to permissions and with all of these recordings?
Yeah, so that's definitely part of our curation effort, right? Is understanding the rights. And rights for music recordings are very complicated. You automatically have three rights holders to consider whenever you're looking at a licensed piece of music, right? Plus our, obedience to our musicians unions, and then just a matter of taste, right? How are we presenting the brand in the best way? Classical musicians are perfectionists at heart. And so we come from a tradition of, ooh, don't release that unless it's perfect. And so sometimes there are sensitivities around that. But mainly it's from, an artistic choice, right? What's actually going to be used well. So yeah, our digital asset management system is tracking rights as best as we can, and there are gray areas, of course. It's challenging, but then also usage. We use purpose values. We do a lot of permissioning within the system, leveraging folder level permissions, asset level permissions. And then we have teams responsible for the media because we license content, right? We reuse things, we work with commercial partners. So there's a whole other, licensing component where all those rights have to be determined, the windows, the geographic, variabilities, all that stuff gets captured in the dams, and they work with our legal team all the time. All the time there's something being negotiated. Yeah, from the moment we choose which program we're going to present to the end. And a great example was the Coachella Music Festival. That was a secret set until the
Oh,
weekend
wow.
that we showed up. Yeah, we did not
That's
release that
amazing.
information. It was still being tweaked and
Yeah.
understood, and those rehearsals were kept very, very tight because we didn't want to spoil the surprise too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
And
really
what a
goes back
wonderful
to the
surprise.
artistic intent. Yeah, it was a great, great
It was
surprise.
a really great surprise for sure. I wish I could have been there
I watched
for
it on
that.
YouTube. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, you're not even you got to go there.
I
All
didn't
right.
get to
Well,
go.
it's interesting. Maybe this is actually a good transition to David, and then I'd love to have you come back and us have a talk afterwards because there's lots. David, I mean, we just heard about rights and all the requirements here and what it means to resell things. Pretty
Mhm.
sure. I don't know. Does A&E does stuff like that?
I,
I'm not really clear.
I
Do they do anything around this
think
kind
that's a
of thing?
thing. I think
Is
that's a
this
thing.
something that you think you could talk about a little bit?
I would be happy to if now is the appropriate time. I'd be
Yeah,
happy to
that was
start
it. I think
putting
it's a
some things
perfect
up.
time.
That
All
sounds great.
right, well, let's get your screen share out, David, and thank you, Meredith. Again, can't wait for you to come back. I'm encouraging everybody, please. There's a lot of you out there. Throw your questions in the Q&A. This is the chance to ask all the questions that you want of Meredith, and then of course of David as well. Great.
Lovely. Well,
All right,
thank
and I
you.
can see your screen, David. We're good.
That saved me a question. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks, Neal. Very excited to share a little bit about what we do at A&E when it comes to managing our video content and getting that content everywhere it needs to go, as Neal was alluding to. But of course, we should start with a sizzle reel. So that is what I believe we have queued up first here, is a little bit about that content and what we have on our A&E Global Media platform.
I
All
love
right.
it, David. Although now that you and Meredith have done such great videos, I feel like I gotta go produce one during while you're doing something. I need something like that too.
See what you can pull up. All good. You
That's
got
right.
that's
Probably not that much.
fair enough. Um,
So yeah, so you can see we've got a lot of great content. If you know A&E, you probably know it for our cable television networks here in the middle, A&E History, Lifetime, FYI, Lifetime Movie Network, and Vice. But A&E is so much more than that, and we've actually recently rebranded as A&E Global Media. You can see we have a lot of other things on the screen that we're involved with. And just to give you a sense of the scale, we're in 7 out of 10 American homes right now, 78 different cable channel feeds running globally, 79 different streaming fast channels, advertising support here in the US, and globally about 500 million digital users. So a lot of people watching a lot of stuff. But one thing you don't see on this slide is an A+E plus or an A&E plus. You don't see here a major streaming service that is hosted by A&E. And this is actually a choice, an intentional choice that was made a few years ago when what's sort of become known as the streaming wars started up. A&E chose that rather than reclaiming all our content for our own streaming service, we were going to license our content to lots of different people, be on a lot of different platforms, take advantage of new business opportunities. Really, we just wanted to, if there was a new thing where people were watching content, A&E wanted to be there, and we wanted to be there quickly and at scale, which really gets us into the way we did that, which is by putting a lot of work into how we manage the television shows and movies and all the information that goes along with them to do that well at scale. So that's what we're going to talk through today is some background on management approaches to video and kind of the ways that I think of it. The metadata and the information that we use to track TV programs and movies, and then how we sort of manage that process from end to end, how we think of our television shows and movies as going through a supply chain and what that means. And then to follow on with Meredith's great presentation, we'll kind of give you a look forward to what we think is coming next and what I see next for our media asset management supply chains related to video toward 2030. So to start with a little background, I think of managing video assets as sort of falling into two major categories. And I think it's important to talk about this a little bit because I think those two major categories have different needs. They have different priorities. And if you think about those trade-offs, because it's hard to do everything well at the same time, and you design systems that sort of cater to one or the other and workflows that enable one or the other, then I think it's a lot easier to be successful. So I think of the two big categories of video assets as raw footage, like clips and original content that you're putting into new creative content. You're making new TV shows or movies or commercials or promotional content. That is creative work in progress as sort of that first category. And then the second category being the finished assets, the long-term storage of television programs and movies and content that's going to be used over and over again. And these different categories, I think of about 4 different ways that there are trade-offs in those two different things. And it's very difficult to do both sides of those things well at the same time. So just to give you a couple examples for work in progress and raw footage, I think it's very important for it to be accessible to creative people who want to get it quickly. But for long-term program archives and distribution work, really you need to prioritize security and make sure people only have access to what they should have access to and are only able to do the things that they should be able to do. Same thing for speed versus safety. If you're a creative working in a system to try to get content to pull into whatever project you're working on, you really want to be able to move fast. But if you're looking at the long-term archive, you really want to make sure that the assets are safe and they're backed up and the long-term storage is prioritized over the momentary access. Same thing if you're a creative working on a project, you really want the systems you're using to be flexible and usable, easy to navigate, easy to get in and out, easy to get what you need. And if you're working on a long-term archive, I think the priorities really shift more toward being consistent. You really want a good, consistent archive with everything cataloged and organized the same way. And you want the quality of your long-term archive to be as high as possible. You want the best possible quality asset to be stored long term. But in the short term, you might be happy with a lower quality version. You might be happy with a proxy because it's faster. It's going to be easier for you to use. So to summarize this quickly, I kind of think about cataloging and organizing raw footage for video as sort of like this convenience store model. It's organized. Things are in bins, but it's easy. It's easy to go grab what you need. You know exactly what it costs. Things are pretty much made to be quick self-service. But the long-term catalog, I think of that's where the nice library comes in, and the beautiful books all stacked on the shelves nicely, labeled exactly the same way in a card catalog system, easy to access. And this is what I'm going to spend a little or most of the time talking about for the remainder of this presentation, because a lot of the work that we've done at A&E to prepare for and execute the large-scale distribution of our content to lots of different places is to focus on this long-term archive and cataloging our assets in the most consistent and reliable way possible so we can automate distribution of them. In doing that, we really think about organizing our content and cataloging our TV shows as going through a supply chain. Supply chain is a concept that's kind of stolen from manufacturing, like making physical goods like cars and refrigerators. But the idea is that you have some raw materials come in one end of the process, people put them together, add value to them, create a finished good that people want to buy. And in some ways, this concept applies pretty well to the processing of TV shows and movies that we do on a regular basis. If you think of media as a supply chain, we really break it down into three big phases: getting new shows in from the people who are making them for us. They come into our systems, get quality checked, make sure they're good to be used in all the use cases we need. Then we think of this middle section where we're creating different versions of the TV shows that we need. We might need a longer version for a premiere, slightly shorter version for a rerun, maybe with an extra commercial break. Might need a version without commercial breaks at all for a subscription streaming service. All those different versions get created in this middle section of our supply chain. And then output, we're taking these finished assets, these TV shows and movies, we're packaging them up and getting them everywhere they need to go, every different streaming service and fast channel. And everybody wants something slightly different when it comes to not only the video formats and how the media is organized, but in particular, the metadata and the information we have about those assets. So for each of these steps, where we're processing media, we're also processing metadata. We're also processing the information about the assets. On ingest, when we're bringing things in, often the metadata we're really focused on is the rights, what we're able to do with the content, and the titles, the descriptive information about what episode is this, what show is this, what's happening in it. And then we're bringing that content in, we're doing quality scans, sometimes by computers helping us out. Then in this middle section, people are looking at the content, and while they're doing that and changing the content, they're also constantly looking at changing and updating metadata. They're adding more information about what the TV show rating might be. Different versions might have different ratings, where the commercial breaks are supposed to go, what the different content is getting marked on a timeline. Lots of metadata updates getting done by those people who are actually looking at the content. And then on the outbound side of things, we're sending content everywhere it needs to go based on what we're required to do and what's been sold. So we have sales deals that we're tracking, we have an inventory system, and we got to make sure everybody who is ordered and is entitled to our content gets exactly what they're entitled to, and we can confirm that and track that and make sure they get it on time. So all throughout its life cycle, we're updating our metadata, spending a lot of time on it. So I put that metadata into four big categories that we track internally. So that first category is what you might think of as primarily the TV guide metadata, what you'd see on a streaming service, what you'd see in a TV guide if you're trying to find a show, the season number, episode number, titles, those types of things. Also some descriptions and keywords to maybe help you search. The second big category of metadata we track, I tend to think of as technical metadata. That's all about what type of video is it, what resolution is it? Does it have captions? And if so, how many? Which audio tracks are in which languages? All of this information needs to be very carefully tracked so that you have a really good inventory to build some automations out of. Segmentation, I think of as the third big category. In video, time is a very important element. In some cases, you can kind of get away with tracking video and cataloging it kind of like it's a moving photo. But in a lot of cases, you really want to take advantage of the fact that there is a timeline, there is time passing during that video, and what's on screen at one moment isn't necessarily what's on screen later on. And so for a television show or movie, there are a lot of things really important about time to track, where the segments go, what type of content is on screen when, where are their credits, where is there extra bonus material that could be inserted and where would it go. So we put a lot of time into tracking segmentation throughout all of our television shows and movies. And then the fourth big category I think of us tracking on the metadata is I call administrative. It's all about rights, what we're allowed to do with the content, what processes a particular piece of content has gone through, the information we need to help kind of steer it in the right direction and get it where it needs to go. So on a regular basis, what we do is we're taking all of our media files, and it's video, obviously, is one of the most important parts, but every video generally has some audio tracks that go with it, maybe some subtitles and captions. Maybe you need an image for a TV guide or that nice banner image that displays on a streaming service. So we're packaging that stuff up for each one of our television shows and movies, and we're putting it with the metadata that it needs to go with, the descriptive information, the technical information about what's included, all of the segmentation and time-based information we need, and that administrative information. We put it all together into one beautiful package and then send that package exactly where it needs to go in the right format to the people who need it. So the metadata is really a big piece of this equation and making sure that everybody understands when they receive these video files and audio files and subtitles, they know exactly what each one is, where it goes, and they're able to automate putting it on a streaming service or making it available to people. So just to give you a little view of what this looks like, here's one of our systems and some of the metadata we track. You can see over here, we kind of have this technical summary that's mostly automated. We're extracting information about the video assets themselves and what kind of technical details they have. Some key metadata about the show and the episode number and the title, and a whole lot of other information that's in the system and used primarily by automation to make sure it gets where it needs to go. So we're taking this stuff on a regular basis. Another screenshot of a system here that we use on a regular basis. We're taking our video and audio and subtitle and image files. They're all cataloged here. They all have their unique attributes. This is for a particular episode of television, Barbarians Rising. And then we put it through a process to send it where it needs to go. And so here's a little timeline view of us submitting an order to send this particular episode of television to a streaming service or a different destination, goes through some stages of processing and packaging up the right assets, making it into the right formats, and then delivering it exactly where it needs to go in the right formats at the right time. And sort of taking this approach of very carefully cataloging and making sure we have that beautiful library neatly organized with all the books on the shelf has let us really grow our distribution workflows and take advantage of a lot of these new opportunities to be on streaming services, to be in lots of different places. And you can see our automation distribution volume here has really grown over the last few years. This chart starts back at 2019. And back then we started rebuilding a lot of our systems to take advantage of some of these new tools and leverage some new technologies. And we've really ramped up with the number of television episodes we're distributing all around the globe. So looking forward a little bit, there's a lot that's changing right now in the media landscape, and I think a lot will change for us over the next few years. There are a few big categories of things that I'm really keeping my eye on, and our teams are really working together to figure out what comes next with. First is automation. We've already built a lot of automated tools to help move content through its life cycle and get it where it needs to go. I think there will be even more automation applied over the next few years, and things today that are requiring people to do integrations with or to drag and drop things between systems. I think we're going to figure out how to do more automation, and that'll help us get even more content through our supply chain, get more content distributed whenever we need to. AI, of course, is a huge topic in so many ways right now. I really think over the next few years, we're going to see a big growth in AI metadata being applied to help catalog and keep track of our assets. And in addition to that, I think AI is going to start helping a lot more with search. And it's these new technologies coming along. Sometimes they're called semantic search, where you can just have a casual conversation like with a chat bot, and it'll surface for you, maybe in our case for television movies, surface for you what you want to watch rather than doing a straightforward keyword search over a catalog. Those things really go together, and it's one of the reasons that we spend so much time making sure our metadata and catalog is good, is so that we can spend time training AI and making sure AI is able to surface that and use it in really helpful ways. And then the third big area I'm keeping an eye on are authenticity initiatives. Now that we are in this age of AI, there's a lot of new content being generated, photo and video included, that are AI generated, and knowing what's an authentic piece of content, what is an AI generated piece of content, what's something that was shot by a camera included in a television show versus what's something that was generated by a prompt. I think there'll be a lot more discussion around that the next few years. So we're already starting to think about how to track that, how to make sure that we have a good catalog that references where we need to, what is real, quote unquote, and what is AI generated. So C2PA is one of those content authenticity initiatives that has some traction in the industry right now, but I think there'll be a lot more discussion about that over the next few years. Excited to see where it all goes. So with that, I thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a few things. It was great listening to Meredith, to your presentation as well, and very excited to chat with you a little bit, Neal. Happy for any questions.
Absolutely, Dave. We'll only start with a question for you, and then we'll bring in Meredith as well, and let's just start having some fun with it. I mean, one of the big things for you probably is about reporting and insight. They must become really important to you
Yes.
as well. And just before you do, I have to say, and I apologize if I'm breaking a rule at Rutgers, but it is really nice to see the work that David has done. I had a chance to work with David years ago when it was an idea, if you remember, right? Like,
Yeah.
what was it and how could it be? And we had an opportunity to work with David and his team at A&E on that. So it's so great to see what you guys have done, David. It's
No,
unbelievable.
hey, you helped get us going, and I appreciate having an opportunity to share. And yeah, thanks for getting us on the
Yeah.
right path. All good.
As I was watching, I was like, I can't like it's happening. You've done a great job on it, right? So
That's
so
nice.
speaking of that, like how important are these insights to the company over the past couple of years? So should we think about how everything is changing so rapidly, right? With it, even the way that people are consuming content or the type of content that they're looking for has changed so rapidly over the last couple of years. What kind of data and insights are you able to pull from this?
Yeah, you're right. Things are changing so fast, and the old way of programming television, you sort of decided what your schedule was, for the whole fall season, maybe weeks or months in advance, and you sort of stuck to that schedule. And some shows came on, and some shows came off, but you really stuck with that. Now that we're running 79 streaming fast channels, those are a great example where people get viewership data back and they very quickly decide, oh, you know what? X-Men works really well on Tuesday nights for some reason. Let's do some more X-Men then. And we're iterating over that schedule, and people are changing what's on the channels very quickly, very regularly. So yeah, it's really changed the way that, particularly on the streaming services and particularly kind of that live streaming, advertising supported streaming world has worked. And people expect to be able to make changes very quickly. So you have to be able to keep up with that and be able to move the stuff around very quickly. So if somebody totally decides what's going to be on the air on a particular channel, You got to be able to get the new stuff out very quickly, which historically wasn't really the case. Historically, you sort of had time to get each episode where it needed to go. So yeah, it's just that feedback loop has gotten faster, and that's putting a lot of pressure on all of us who help move the bits around to just make sure they get moved quickly.
I believe it. Now, I know one of the things that you always have a challenge with is language. And by that, your content's available not just in English, but in multiple languages. Can you speak a little bit about that? And Meredith, I'd be curious, are you dealing with languages as well after David? So, and maybe talk about the challenges because brands today more than ever, right? So not knowing everybody's on here, but whether they be brands or cultural institution or anything, their audience is no longer just local,
Yeah.
right? Which is what we used to think about. Your audience is everywhere now. And if you look on YouTube, there's one of the ones I like to cite is there's a mountain bike company, Trek. They produce every YouTube video with 70 languages
Amazing.
because there's mountain bikers everywhere in the world that are buying things from them, right?
Yeah.
But what a challenge. So talk a little bit about those challenges with video.
Yeah, definitely. So for us, our content ends up in about 40 different languages at the end of the day. Not every piece, but 40 different languages get distributed around the globe. So keeping track of that stuff also adds some extra complexity. And some cases, we take our US created, often English language, often original master, and we can stack on translated audio tracks on it. But in a lot of cases, we're actually sending that original master around the globe and it's being translated and localized in the region where it's going to play. And when that happens, often people are making some small changes to it to make it better for that particular region or make it more appropriate for that particular region. Some regions have different words you're allowed to say or not say, and different things that are okay to show on TV versus not. So then when it gets changed and we capture it back in our system in the US, it's a little bit of a detective game to figure out, okay, what changed about this video? What is it all still here or some pieces edited out or some extra pieces put in? So it adds some complexity to really track it well. And it's something honestly we still struggle with. We work to try to unify the tracking as much as we can so we know exactly what we have in every language. But sometimes we end up with, okay, here is the German master, here is the Korean master, and it has changed a little bit, and it's appropriate for that language, but we don't necessarily go through every detail and see how it's different than the original one was in English. So definitely adds a lot of complexity.
Meredith, how about you? Are you guys dealing with languages?
Yeah, definitely. Our digital team has a big accessibility mission to make sure that our content on the web is accessible in multiple languages, as well as, other types of disabilities, hearing impaired, visually impaired audiences. We definitely want to represent as many people as possible and reach as many people as possible. Our main translations are Spanish and Korean. That represents our audience makeup. But I will say that on the topic of AI tools, we've had a lot of success with running speech to text in our dams and then translating that text. So we're able to provide for researchers where English is not their first language, translated transcripts into their native language is a huge win for us, as well as interview capture content, right? Where we can capture people speaking in their native languages, translate to English, and we don't hire an interpreter anymore to sit alongside them. We are able to translate the video or audio recordings after ingestion into NAMs. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Talk about both of you just for one more minute each on the challenge that it is to manage the asset and just talk about closed caption, right? Just a closed caption. So you have to manage both the asset and its relationship, right? Along with the metadata all at the same time, right? And so, let alone language versions and different cuts, and what's the challenge? And I've said it too many times, but I'll say it one more time. It's like that phrase: "If an image is, worth 1,000 words, like what's video worth?"
Mhm.
Right? When you think about the complexities of having to manage, and the challenge that comes with dams, right, and which are really built for photos, and they do great jobs on that. It's not a downplay of that, but that's the really key difference: is can a system handle these complexities of relationships between assets, et cetera. Talk a little bit about
Yeah, happy to go first.
it.
Yes, definitely adds some complexity, and we think about it too. We use the $10,000 word conformance groups a lot, where we have a video, and now let's figure out what all goes along with it that matches for time. So, which caption file goes with this video? Which, German translation goes with this original English video? And being able to stack all that together and accurately keep it all in time, because let's say the system says for Hulu we need a special version with all the commercial break times removed for a subscription service, but the original caption file or subtitle actually had some space in it for commercial breaks. So you go through all these differences, and it's easy to think that you just need to change the video, but we're constantly reminding ourselves and constantly going through the process of, okay, what does this change to the video mean for the caption that comes with it and the audio tracks that need to go with it and maybe the images that got to come along with it too. And you're right, keeping track of those relationships is one of the things that really sets a system like if it's a MAM that's focused on tracking video, sets it apart from maybe a system that's more focused on just tracking the photos.
Yeah, I would agree that relationships are key. It's definitely something I look for in system selection. Is really leveraging data models either out of the box or what you can configure. It has to support multiple relationships. Video relationships are tricky. How do you, yeah, relate those caption files to each other? So yeah, you're very intentional in your data model from the beginning, and then hopefully are able to expand as more, yeah, as more caption tracks are needed.
Amazing. All right, we had a question come in, uh, David. Although I think this will apply to you as well, Meredith, because I love the fact that they're almost the same. They're almost the same. Let's be honest, right? With it all, how long does it take to package a show for licensing? From when the deal is made, and let's not include contract execution and a whole bunch of those things, because I wouldn't count any of those. Who knows about that? But for when the deal is made to when the package is delivered, and then how much of it's manual today and how much is automated? And we know there's always a mix of those things, and we're always trying to get to as much automation as possible. But maybe if you want to talk about that, David, do you mind starting?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, it's a really good question. It depends is the honest answer. It depends, but it depends on a few different things. First and foremost, if we already have on the shelf a video or an audio file or a thing that the company we're sending it to likes, makes life a little easier. That's great. And we always try when we're making a new licensing deal to say, great, you like these formats. We have these formats. Would you pick one of these? Because if you pick one of these, we already have it. And that's great. And everybody's happy. Um, but it also depends how we're connected to that other place that we're sending it to. So sometimes we're making a deal with a new streaming service, and it is already connected. Maybe it was a part of a different service, or we had sent content to it at one point, so we had some connectivity to it. So sometimes it's pretty easy to get connected to a service or take the content that's in the inventory and just send it to the service. So if all the stars align and somebody hands us a list of content to that's already in the library to a place that we already know how to send to and are connected to, it could be shipping in hours. Like it could really just start going through that process pretty quickly. But if we have to generate the content, if we have to write some software to connect to that endpoint, that might take a couple weeks to kind of get up and running. But our goal is always, wherever we can, to take the time up front to write the software, build the connectivity, kind of get that pipeline built to that destination, and then automate sending all the stuff, automate generating all the stuff through the pipeline and getting it where it needs to go. So that way, if another deal comes up or if that company wants some more stuff, hopefully it's really easy the second time. So we're always thinking about that, and where we can, we're always trying to automate the actual sends.
Yeah, Meredith, how about you guys?
I'm amazingly jealous. I miss my days of working in media broadcasting and having these great supply chains and automations involved and always, evolving with your colleagues. I think it's so exciting. We are highly manual. We receive requests,
That's
and
fine.
and they're unique. Each request is a little different depending on our relationship with our artists and which content we own and don't own. But we do have a lovely team, our media initiatives team, which handles that, works with our legal teams, works with our production, artistic teams. It's a highly collaborative effort to understand how all that rights management plays out for licensing requests. And I will say that we leverage our nonprofit status a lot. So when we undertake a large project, like a documentary, for example, we usually give those documentary producers a lot of access to our assets, or we curate specific content for them. But we're not licensing each individual piece, right? We're using it kind of under the banner of either education purposes. And yeah, it depends on the distribution deal. But I would say, yeah, we're still leaning heavily on, being a nonprofit and cultural institution when it comes to those
I
cases.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand. All right, now we've gotten into some pretty specific, very intense kind of activities with it for a second. Let's take it back up a level, just acknowledging, there could be people who are just getting started,
Mm.
right, with video, or the classic case of which actually started my consulting practice was talking to somebody at Henry Stewart conferences, and they were there because IT said, "Here's 40 terabytes of video." And they were like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm a photography damn manager. Right? I have no idea what to do at all, which then made me think, oh, I should probably start a consultancy on this. So what would you say is the thing that you would give advice to those who are just starting
Mm.
when it comes to thinking about managing video?
I'll start because I
Yeah.
love talking to people who are, because that is the quandary, right? You're usually, yeah, handed a drive with terabytes and terabytes of
Didn't
information.
even know it was my job to
I
manage this.
didn't even know how to do
Yeah.
that. And I will say, I work with, so many young video producers who never had to do linear editing, right? I mean, they are
Yeah.
digital born digital natives. So this idea that you can just pass files along, shoot from your phone, really create content in these amazingly quick ways, but not have the perspective of what the ramifications are, right? Not really understand, well, what is the cloud? Where is this stuff that I'm shooting, to? Where is this all going? So being able to have teams and bring them into the education process is so valuable. Really, starting from scratch, what type of codecs are you using? What are your choices? Why did you make those choices? We don't want to take those choices for granted. We want to support the creative effort, but we want to educate them too, right? To make the best choices about their file management. I help a lot of governance communities within LA Phil, talking about, the pros and cons of AI, talking about, what digital preservation really means. And it's always an opportunity to engage with these content creators. Understand, where they're coming from, and yeah, try to get a baseline education. So when I say, all right, we're going to upload it to the dams, we're not going to keep that on a hard drive forever, they understand why, right?
Totally. That's exactly it. Dave, what about you?
Yeah,
What would
no,
you
I
tell the first thing that you would say or give some advice?
Yeah, it's tough to give blanket advice, but I'll try. I'll try. But no, I think Meredith, you hit it right. I would say focus on your goals. Think about your goals. Like, what are you trying to do with this stuff? That which is a very common situation to have a bunch of stuff handed to you and be like, I don't know, figure this out. But think about what you're trying to do. Like where you work, what are you trying to do with these videos? Is this a bunch of raw footage? I keep coming back to those kind of two big categories of, is it a bunch of clips that you might want to pull into a project, or is it a bunch of finished stuff that you might want to send to people and use for distribution and have a nice catalog of? And sort of think about your goals and then plan accordingly. So if you have a bunch of clips, great, you can kind of make a plan and figure out how to manage that. And maybe even a quick win is a simple thing you've already got, like throw it in a Dropbox or box, not that those are be all and end all tools, but they're fine maybe to get started. or you may have something else in-house that might do the job pretty well. And for those finished clips, for those things that you might want to preserve and be able to find and distribute long term, I feel like you spend a little more time there on thinking about tracking them and adding some metadata to them and just making sure that you keep them safe, like put a little extra attention on them if they're finished things that you think have a lot of value. That's sort of where I start, is just like think about your goals and think about which type of stuff you have the most of and kind of go from there.
I think that's great
Well,
advice.
yeah, I actually, want to just add to this to be ruthless.
Mm.
I mean, this is going to sound weird, right? Because I work a lot in the cultural sector as well. But sometimes you need to be ruthless, especially, with production content and everything. If you're not really going to be reusing it for a reason, like you can't resell it, is there really valuable to it? Do you need all of this stuff, right? Compared to the finished assets or those that were part of creating it, right? Do you even have the right to remix it?
Yep.
So if you don't, then be ruthless, because your job is going to be to wrangle this stuff as much as possible. And I think that's a tough one, that balance between, not allowing these systems to get too big where they're uncontrollable
Mhm.
because there's just a whole bunch of weight in there that aren't needed versus, the true valuable information. Or what we always like to say is go through that raw footage, because I guarantee you somebody left a camera running,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Most
You could
definitely.
probably save several terabytes alone just by kind of like
Exactly.
dealing with the fact that we just don't need that camera running that was just pointing at a chair for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I worked in news for a while and we had the empty podium problem that was a very regular thing where you have hours of a camera pointed at an empty podium just waiting for somebody to come up and say something important, but you do not need to throw all that in the archive and keep
Just
it forever.
yeah,
Yep.
All good.
that's
It's a good
now
device.
unless there was something set underneath that microphone from a
That's
news
true. Every
situation,
now
that's
and then.
probably a little bit different, right?
True.
From it. Meredith, the question came in, says, when you said you like to have as many people to upload to the dam as possible,
Mhm.
were you specifically meaning a larger body of the LA Phil personnel only uploading LA Phil, or do you mean others as a non-LAP personnel as well? And if so, how are you managing rights concerning what others are uploading?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's both. We work with outside photographers and videographers, and I don't want them leaving all their stuff on Dropbox and not to be discoverable by my archivists and partners. I want them uploading into the dams. So we provide permissions specifically for content of raw, footage, be that the video files or photography, mainly photography assets. And then the kind of benefit that we give them is we'll help them with the approval process. So we'll have somebody on the other side, an LA Phil employee, who represents the talent or has those relations with the talent, ushering in those approvals. It's a huge win for photographers who back in the day, used to have to chase people at the concert that night before they get on their tour bus and drive away. Sign up on this, make sure that that's true. So all of that kind of waiver information, approval information happens very soon when that concert wraps. And ushering that information to the dams is of utmost importance, or someone receiving those photographs or videos and then getting those approvals later on. So there's definitely a push-pull of pulling in content and then making sure that content is tagged correctly. When I said other users, I meant really empowering our internal users. We did not have the luxury to staff up, a large team of catalogers and librarians. I wish I would hire all my current students, would bring them on board with me. It'd be fantastic. But we don't have that luxury. And so we're working with nonprofit budgets. And so really the whole dam rollout relied on people being empowered within their departments to upload themselves, understand themselves what that means. And it's challenging. It is for sure challenging. Again, the role of governance, the role of checking your assets, doing regular audits, is done by some of my team, the archives team. There's a lot of that going on. But the main thing is I want them to deliver the content, right? I want that to be the path of least resistance. I don't want it left in
Absolutely.
a Dropbox somewhere. I want it in
Yeah.
a central area where we can better understand it. So even if it's tagged at a bare minimum, even if it's not tagged, we know where it is. It's more discoverable. And we try to apply that to a lot of our digital repositories, even outside of our media. Understanding, that we're creating our own little internal data lake. And so looking for more tools that will help us analyze that content, ensuring the users that, park it here, we got this, let's move on. And yeah, so trying to empower them, giving them all the tools that we can. Integrations with video editing software is so important in that. Being able to pull content out of the library, re-edit it, bring it back in seamlessly is huge. So those type of wins, looking for anytime we can integrate, anytime we can make that as seamless as possible. It's been an organic process for sure, and it is challenging, but we're trying our best.
Just like Dan, MAM's also like that, right? It's always, iterative in terms of what it is, and having partners and systems that we can do these iterative things is so important. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, and I feel like the AI overlords will come after us if we don't add in one more AI question. Like they'll be tracking this against the Zoom call that we have here. We didn't ask enough AI questions. It is a hot topic still. So we talked about speech to text. There's no doubt 100% the best kind of tool that you can AI for, right? Still needs manual to check it. It messes up my name all the time. I'm going to tell you that. But you still need to be checking these things. What is any other applications of AI that you've seen or that you're interested in on how it might be able to help you? Meredith, you want to start?
Yeah, so analyzing that data lake, like I mentioned, if we're building these central repositories, if we're trying to understand our retention process, what we're keeping, what we're disposing of, what's being preserved long term, I really want to utilize AI to help me do that. I want to do that, that initial scrape. What do I have? How many things do I have? I mean, these are basic automations and reporting that we've been doing, but the ability to train your own model to help you understand it. I'm very excited about different, agentic tools that, are coming out there. Being able to leverage that is my number one goal. And then to keep track of, that descriptive tagging and facial recognition, object recognition. It's not where we want it to be. I tell people this all the time, it can say
Takes a
that
while.
if that's a horn, but it's not going to tell me that's an English horn. That's a French horn.
That's
That's a
right. Yeah,
trumpet.
that's
That's a
exactly.
tuba.
It definitely won't tell you that. I can tell you that much for sure.
It's not gonna.
All right,
It doesn't know
we're
a
about to get the
viola.
hook here.
It's a violin.
Yeah.
It doesn't know that.
Eh,
So
Yeah.
yeah, training
And
those
we're
models.
about to get the curtain called on us here. So, David, in 20 seconds or less, what's the AI one that you're most interested in?
So I would say, to be fast, computer vision stuff I think is coming along, and it's not like amazingly 100% accurate yet, but I feel like it's starting to get to the point where you can dump in a bunch of video and it's starting to be useful sorting out like when there are people and when there's stuff. And if you're looking for particular objects or moments, it's getting better. And I think that's really going to evolve quickly over the next few years. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And I think the more we think about it as a co-worker,
Yeah.
then taking over, I think
Mhm.
is what we should be thinking about. How can it help do those repetitive tasks? All right, on that, who's coming in to spin the wheel? How does that work?
Yay.
Julie's going to
Hello.
spin the wheel.
I'm going to spin the wheel. So I hope you all enjoyed this great conversation. And Meredith is actually an instructor here at CPS. She teaches managing video assets. So this wheel is all about somebody who will get to come and learn alongside her. So, and here comes the
So
wheel.
much. It's always such a privilege to recognize within the field of how we expect content to go to work and do things for us every day, to learn from such skilled practitioners, and also to learn from the three of you who have been involved in the concept of, well, I got some ones and zeros running around, and I got some digits, I got some metadata, so I got some assets, and we all believe if we've got rights, we really have assets. And how the landscape, meaning, intention, and purpose of what that comes to represent keeps changing, has changed, and continues to change. We're privileged to work in a field that's kinetic and organic and growing. The three of you contribute to that. To those of you who joined us today to benefit from what David, Meredith, and Neal shared with us, thank you for your time. On behalf of Rutgers University and with Dr. Johnson and I, we will look forward to welcoming you to our next colloquium. Everybody have a good afternoon and a good forthcoming 3-day weekend. This concludes the colloquium. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.